Yeah, everybody, thanks for coming on the call. Been real excited about this one, especially because it's been something that I guess a lot of people have been asking about and have been wondering about kind of how AI is going to be playing into the whole digital marketing scene, I guess, for lack of a better term. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is everything related to well, we're going to be talking about SEO as well, and then GEO, and just kind of how you can basically rank in all the different areas now. So we'll just get right into it. Kind of what we're going to be covering is going to be we're going to be talking about Google, of course, and some of the latest updates that we have there, and really just the changes to the Google algorithm lately. We're going to talk about, of course, AI, answer engines, things like Siri, Alexa, things like that, and how they're shaking up the market. Also, talk about some of the things that may have been done in the past or maybe you're currently doing that could actually be hurting you, things that need to change, different strategies that might have once worked but don't work anymore. So make sure we're covering that. And then we're going to be going through the website, talking about SEO, GEO, all that stuff, to see how you can really change up your website and what the website should be doing to get the most results from Google and from all these new AI things like ChatGPT out there. See a lot of familiar names on here, which is great. Those of you that don't know me, I'm Alex Danner, I'm the owner and founder of Fence and Deck Marketers. And Fence and Deck Marketers, we try to give as much content or more content than really anybody. So we do a lot of different things like these webinars, for an example, but also do a lot of stuff with the podcast. So if you're into podcasts, feel free to check out the Fence and Deck Mastery podcast. Bring on really guests from all over the place there, and other successful business owners or manufacturers, vendors. Have a lot of fun with that. The best known fence and deck contractor wrote that about 5 or so months ago, I think. So if you ever want something a little bit more comprehensive, that's a good resource. Social media too, we try to post close to every day on there. So if you ever want just like little tidbits and different information to help you out, feel free to check that out. And of course, we're proud members of NADRA and the AFA too. Oops, skip one. So just a little bit about fence and deck marketers. We only work with fencing and decking companies, which I'm sure everybody could have guessed that one. So if you're ever have questions or things about any type of digital marketing for fencing or decking, definitely reach out or check out the website. Build websites. We do SEO, GEO, which we'll be talking about, Google ads, local services ads, Facebook ads, social media. Those are our core services that we help get leads for clients. Okay, so a big piece of digital marketing is really just being omnipresent, trying to be seen everywhere, seen in a bunch of different areas. We try the same thing with with our marketing. Really trying to utilize as many different types of digital marketing that you can to be seen everywhere. There's these days when everyone's bombarded with different types of marketing, they need to see your company often in order for them to actually work with you, especially with fencing and decking. Decking even more so since it's high ticket, it's a big cost. But in order for them to kind of know if they want to work with you and spend a lot of money on their fence or deck, they want to know who you are. So that's a big piece of what we do, is trying to get you seen in as many places as possible. And the first is going to be maximizing opportunities. So you got to get people coming in the door, actually reaching out to you and getting those leads so you can actually have a shot at signing them and starting projects. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Choked on something. So, excuse me. I don't know what that was. Sorry about that. Okay, so some of the different options for maximizing opportunities, I just listed out the ones that we do. So, the online ones, SEO, pay-per-click, Facebook ads, local services ads, social media. There's, of course, offline ones as well. There's no shortage of things you can do offline, whether it's, magazines, postcards, things like that. Those will help bring in the leads. And they also help with the second piece is going to be your brand impressions. Um, and an actual pretty a stat that I just learned from Neil Patel, who's really the leader in digital marketing. Um, so if something costs $10,000 or more, and it's sold from B2C, which we all are here, it's going to be basically roughly 21 times that someone needs to see your company before they actually buy from you. So with the higher ticket items, going B2C, it's really important to get these brand impressions. That's why things like Facebook ads work really well. That's what we use, for brand impressions primarily. Same with social media, but you want to get your company in the minds of everyone. Everyone's overstimulated. There's no shortage of distractions these days. So, finding different ways to get in front of them, so when the time comes, they can reach out. Um, and then once they're there, you got to actually get them to, buy from you and or reach out for a lead. So things like your website needs to be built for conversions. It's great to have a good looking website. I can see several clients on this call that they've probably tired of hearing this one, but there's just things that have to be on a website that will actually can get them to say, all right, let me give them a call and let me fill out this form and actually turn into a lead. So we'll be talking about that too. Okay, so this is just an overall wheel. I guess like all of our services here too. So if you're ever curious, it's just we already listed all these out, so I'm not going to go into that. All right, so I want to try to make this as interactive as possible. I want to hear what you guys think. So with AI, with ChatGPT, it's all anyone talks about, it seems like lately. Do you think, or put a one in the chat if you think SEO still matters in 2025. Put a two in there if you think it's less effective, if it's kind of on the downswing. All right, so all ones there. Yep. So it definitely, of course, still matters. We'll be diving in to kind of give you some like hard numbers and stuff on like searches between Google and other AI. So excited to show you guys that. But this is kind of this is something that I want to show you kind of when they get to Google, kind of how it works, what people are typically clicking on and things like that. So this is a study done by Moz, which is one of the top SEO companies. And they said 71% of clicks when they get to Google go to the map pack, which if you can see my cursor here, that's this top section, the three top Google business profiles, and then this bottom section here, and all the website results, 71% of the clicks there. So just about 30% of all the clicks do not go in the Google Ads section. And even maybe more surprising, most people are not going past the top two results in the website. So people are typically clicking right here or going in the top two results. So it's really important to not only rank in the map pack, that's where the bulk of the leads go. That's almost 50% of all of this, but they're also going to be clicking at the top results too. All right. So I want to show you kind of a real world example. I'm going to show you a client here to see like kind of the difference between SEO and ranking on ChatGPT and kind of how it works. So this is a client in New Hampshire, Premier Deck. So if you go into and type in, they're in Rochester, New Hampshire. You type it in, it brings up the map pack, brings up the results. You now can rank two different website results, which is nice in Google. So we've been seeing a lot of this lately, and it's great if you're on the receiving end of it. If you're the one that's ranking the top two, but that's kind of how it'll list there on Google. And then when you go to ChatGPT, which is of course growing and everybody knows about, if you type in, usually it's a different type of search when people go to ChatGPT. It's more informational. So it's rarely people are typing in like you type into Google, which is just like fence company near me or something like that. Here it's like, who are this would be an example of a pretty common one. Who are the best deck builders in New Hampshire? So in this case, you can kind of see it's almost like they're trying to look like Google a little bit. They're having showing the different results, but really they're showing their own kind of results. It's not like they're showing Google listings, which are tied to Google. It's kind of just their own piece here. Maybe they'll add their own segment like that eventually. But this is kind of the two ways you can go. And just to give you an idea of where the leads usually and typically should be coming from, I always say, if you have most of your leads should be coming from organic. I'll admit this is even probably a little bit higher than average, but if you're sitting there and you're spending all your money or spending a bunch of money on just ads and you're not seeing SEO leads, it's definitely a cause for concern. I mean, I would expect pretty much any as long as you're in a good area, that can change if you're in an area with no people in it, but if you're in a solid area, most of your leads should be coming from SEO. In this case, it's a vast majority, about 74%. I did a couple clients just to see. I would say this one was on the higher end. We had a couple in the 60s as well. But that's just something you want to think about. If your lead flow is really coming from ads or from, really anything but SEO, I guess, just know that there is a big opportunity there. So, of course, yeah, SEO does matter. And the main thing, and probably what interested everyone the most, to join this is the whole AEO versus GEO. So if you've never heard of these before, AEO is answer engine optimization. And this is all about really how you can show up in Siri, Alexa, and, basically those types of AI tools, I guess, for lack of a better term, where you type into your phone, your Alexa, whatever, and get a response. So before ChatGPT came out, I would get a lot of questions about that, like how do you rank for it? To be honest, it's really not anywhere close to as relevant as GEO and definitely not anywhere close to SEO. So we're not going to be focusing on a whole lot of that, but the principles to rank there do tie in with what you got to do for GEO too. So you got to have good content that answers questions, consistently on a website. That is what your customers are asking. So with GEO, generative engine optimization, that's really big on optimizing the content on your website so you can rank for different types of searches. So not necessarily just optimizing for fence company or deck builder. It's talking about more, I guess, searches that are asking more of a question, a longer form question. So the main options here, as you probably heard of most of these, ChatGPT, everybody's heard of. You have Gemini, Perplexity, and it seems like there's more coming out there too. But we'll dive into this here more soon. But just curious to see who uses what, because we do get a lot of questions about this. So put a 1 in the chat if you use Alexa or Siri. Put a 2 in the chat if you use ChatGPT consistently, and then put a 3 in there if you use both, if you're using them both pretty consistently. So pretty much all 2s here. All right, James uses them both. Yeah, I mean, with the AEO, reason that's not taking off is just because people want to see something. They want to, oh, Joe, we got a 1. Okay. Most people, at least that's how I am, is I want to see something. That's why the websites work well, and kind of ways to differentiate yourselves. Especially in the fencing or decking side, it's just very unlikely that someone's going to be like, find me, sitting in the kitchen to their Alexa, like, find me a fence guy to build me this nice new fence or this beautiful new deck. They want to know kind of who they're working with, and a little bit more about them and do a little bit more research. So a lot of some industries, whether it's plumbing or HVAC, that kind of thing, where it's cheaper, I would say it would work a little bit better. Okay, so I want to show you another real world example. So this is what's really cool about ChatGPT, amongst a lot of things, because there's all kinds of cool stuff there. But this will kind of show you like how you can rank in an area, and using real language, not like just a couple keywords, but kind of similar to the search I did earlier. This one is, I'm looking for a deck builder in Franklin, Tennessee. What are the suggestions? It'll list out, your suggestions like we were talking about earlier. But to take it one step further, you can actually ask ChatGPT, what the recommendations are, like what criteria led to those results. So it'll tell you exactly what it looks at and kind of things that you should know, or you should be doing for your website, for your marketing to do this. So if anybody's spoken with me, they know I talk about reviews nonstop. So that's a huge one. It seems like ChatGPT does prioritize somebody that has very high rankings and very high average and number of reviews. So with Google, there's other factors that play into it quite a bit. You know, proximity is really huge, whereas ChatGPT seems like it kind of picks like the best overall, you know, kind of goes in that direction. So if you're completely dominating on reviews, like I always try to get everybody to do, um, that's gonna that's gonna help you stand out a lot. And I know reviews are complete pain. Everybody hates getting them, but they will help you out tremendously, and they're going to help you out more and more with AI as well. So next is going to be local presence. This one's really prevalent with Google. You know, making sure you're actually in that area, not like on the outskirts. That's going to give you a lot of priority. The service offerings, you got to make sure whatever they type in, of course, that you do. That one's pretty standard. The website quality is kind of a cool one. That's another one I'm always harping on. You know, you got to make sure you have a website that kind of stands out, looks professional, that kind of thing. And, you know, making sure the website clearly states exactly what you do. So at the websites that, you know, have one page with all your services on it or just very thin content, it's going to really hurt you down the line, because it's going to be very hard for AI to understand it. You know, they're not going to understand what's going on. Business hours, this is another one I always talk about. You know, if you're open later, you know, if you can be open as late as possible, that's going to help you out big time too, because they will prioritize the businesses that are open. So if you can have someone that can answer the calls later, I always recommend answering services. And actually, I think surprised to see, I don't know if Nicole was on here. Nicole from Jill's office. I send a lot of business their way because clients that use them really like them. But she registered the podcast, but I don't think she's on here. But there are a really good one. And actually did a podcast with them. If you're ever curious, you can check out Jill's office. But they just seem to do a really good job. And having somebody like that you can trust to answer the calls after hours too, even if it's just only after hours, you can then open up your hours to later in the evenings when people are off work or on the weekends. It just helps widen your net, you know, the people that you can attract. Experience and specialization, you know, got to make sure you can actually do the work, you have a track record, you know, you do exactly what they're doing, or what they're looking for, that kind of thing. All right, so these are some cool stats, and some, I guess, kind of proof, basically of where people are searching and how often. So Google search, these days, everybody talks about AI. And so I think everyone thinks it's like just completely dominating, or, you know, it's about to crush Google. But I follow this stuff very often, and at this point, it hasn't. Could anything happen? Yeah, it definitely could. But as of right now, Google search gets about 10 million monthly searches related to home services. It's still the dominant platform for service-related queries like deck builders near me, fence repair, Denver, you know, fence company near me. So when people are ready to make that plunge and go into, you know, find somebody, that's where they're going. That's where they're finding, you know, they still have it's just a, you know, better view, I guess, too, with all the reviews and things like that. So that's what I would, that's what we've seen there. These are, you know, the stats that we got from one of our sources. And then ChatGPT is 500,000 to 1 million. It's growing extremely fast. And that's more, if you remember, you know, it's more traditional language, I guess. You know, what's the best fencing company in Tampa? How much does a deck builder charge? Things like that. More of the research phase, which is still important. And then you have Perplexity, Bing Chat, Gemini. You know, those are 300 to, you know, 100 to 500,000 searches. So that's kind of what we've seen as a breakdown as of now. And then, yeah, kind of bottom line is Google is still king for service-based searches. But Geo, you know, ChatGPT, these kinds of companies are growing fast. I use ChatGPT all the time. I would recommend everybody here use it all the time. I was just on a webinar watching somebody from AI, and a little tip that's been really helpful is like putting a sticky note next to your desk. So as you kind of get stuck in your patterns, or at least this is how I see it, and you kind of are like, oh, well, let's just, you know, whatever's in your mind, that's how you tackle a problem. And you just don't even think about any other solutions. So this sticky note's been helpful because it's kind of right in front of me, and it makes me think like, oh yeah, like that probably could shave off, like 50% of the time if I just started with AI or something like that. And I use it for all kinds of, different things, um, just random creating spreadsheets or, creating a list of whatever. I use it for formatting stuff. Like get some like ugly document. I'll say format this in a much better, more presentable way, and then it'll create a PDF for it. It's amazing what it can do. So you should be using AI is the point. You don't want to ignore it. Um, but as it relates to fencing and decking and leads, it's a lot more of the top of funnel. So bottom of funnel is Google, where everyone's like, yeah, I'm ready to go. Like let's find somebody. GEO, AI, ChatGPT, they all seem to be more the FAQ style, like asking questions, getting information, that kind of thing. And there are still people that are using, I mean, there are people that are using AI to find people. So it's not like Google is the entire market. So you still want to account for those people too. And then, yeah, at the end of the day, you want to show up in both of them, whether it's SEO, GEO, they have similar principles, but no matter which way it goes, you want to make sure you're kind of ready. All right. So, yep, SEO does matter. Geo will continue to grow. I don't think AEO will get too much bigger, to be honest, but Geo should. So, want to account for it. All right. And I'm just curious too, like with this here, coming on to this, we got a pretty good amount of registrations. So, does this surprise you that Google, put a 1 in the chat if it surprises you that they still dominate? Put in the 2 in the chat if you're not surprised that Google still dominates. Okay. More 2s than I thought. Thought there would be some 1s in here, to be honest, but okay, that's good. Yeah, we talked to we talked to a lot of people, and it seems like it's definitely high on the radar, but typically with yeah, I don't know. I guess anything that gets big, just like social media, everyone, a lot of people think social media is like the way to go for leads, things like that. But I think it's just because we're all on it, so often. And ChatGPT, you can get lost in a spiral for a whole day if you wanted to, if you played around with it long enough. All right. So these are all the rank categories for SEO and GEO. So basically, you want to account for all of these. It's a long list. It gets in the weeds, not going to lie. But if you're just kind of curious to different things, you can take a screenshot or whatever of it. But the technical side is kind of more what you don't see. Making sure your pages are indexed. There's nothing broken links on your website. Hosting speed, security, all these things need to be accounted for. Whereas the on page is more of your things that you can see on the website. So the actual content, how your keywords are optimized, your header titles and tags, meta descriptions and titles, the content, the quality of it, the length of it, making sure there's enough content on the page to feed that engine for AI. I'm sure a lot of you have heard me say this too. Anyway, that if we've spoken, Google needs to understand the page, it understands text. Same with AI. That's why things like FAQs, which we'll be talking about here in more, you got to feed it that knowledge so it can understand your company and what you do. And then the off page, that's also behind the scenes. So your backlinks, social media, that plays into it too. If you have a lot of good following there. And reviews, always going to keep going back to that, citations, PRs, podcasts. So really just things that you can do away from your website that are going to tell these search engines and AI engines, a little bit more about yourself. And then if all of these things are done by, everybody, and usually they're not all created equal, the technical on page and off page, usually the on page is kind of the separator, but maybe you have 2 websites, you have competitors that are doing all these things. It could come down to the experience too. So, making sure the website actually loads quickly, making sure you don't have annoying pop-ups on the website, mobile responsive. Hopefully everyone has a mobile responsive website, but thinking about the actual experience of it, how long they actually stay on the page will tell Google if it should be ranked higher or lower. EEAT, we're actually going to dive into this a little bit later. It stands for expertise, experience, authority, and trust. It's just Google's whole way that they can understand content and how whether or not basically your website should rank higher than others. So we'll get into that in a little bit. Um, there's a lot of ranking factors. So 200 plus. If you had to focus on anything for ranking, definitely make sure that website's in good shape. The content looks good. You have enough content. Reviews are huge. So those are usually probably the top two that I recommend. But the rest of these things are very important too. Okay. So I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here because this is kind of a summary of what we just looked at. But I wanted to give you another view of it and kind of explain a little bit. So this is kind of the ChatGPT criteria for ranking. This also works for the other AI tools. So you have to look at the ratings. Reviews are just so important. You need to make sure you have them. It's a good idea to add on other sources as well. For the decking side, it can be tough to get a ton of reviews because it's usually longer projects. Fencing can be easier. If you do staining services on either, then you can be in business there too because you'll get a lot more opportunities. But make sure that review average 4.5 or higher. Really, I would say 4.7 or higher, but definitely don't want to be under 4.5. Try to get as many reviews as possible. Right now, we're working on a whole system to help clients get reviews and through emails, texts, and calls. Trying to solve that whole problem that everyone kind of has. So it's just a tough one. It's tough for everybody to get them. The good news is if you can solve the problem, everybody has the same problem. So it's a big differentiator and something you can really do to set yourself apart. Years in business, if you've been around longer, they tend to like that more. Although people do kind of lie about their age in business too. So there's definitely some lies out there on Google listings I've seen. And then service offerings, making sure you offer everything that they're talking about. Strangely enough, if you are a full service, you do all types like repairs and replacements, those are prioritized. I don't think it's a make or break type thing, but that was kind of shocking to see. But yeah, whole one-stop shop, which is kind of counterintuitive to what most businesses like to do, including mine, since we only work with niches, these two niches. All right, we talked about that, the longer hours, local presence, making sure you're actually within the area that they're searching, professional website, we talked about that. Certifications, making sure you're licensed, and that's a really good idea to display too. Okay, so since SEO and Google are still king, this is just kind of some of the things that you really should be paying attention to for your website. So make sure you know the most important keywords. I'm going to show you some of them coming up here, but use tools like Google Keyword Planner, SEMrush, Ahrefs. Some of these are paid, but you got to get a list of keywords that you want to rank for based on what you offer. It's really important. If you don't do that, then everything else it's just not going to work as well. Make sure you have a great website that has a page for every service that you do. Don't just have one services page and even one decking page. If you're doing things like, of course, you're doing railing or lighting, you can do separate pages for that. That's what we like to do. Composite decking, wood decking on the fencing side, metal, vinyl, chain link, iron, whatever materials you're using, having pages for those too. Make sure the user experience on the website's good. So call to actions, you want to make it as easy as possible to figure out how to contact you. So putting big phone numbers there, contact forms. You can put on blog posts with content that your customers are actually asking. Optimize for SEO, meta titles, header tags, keyword density. Adding backlinks. That's a tough one, probably one of the toughest. But you want to make sure you're building those every month. Make sure you put your reviews on the page. And at the end of the day, just track your results, add new things and see how you can improve. All right. Put a 1 in the chat if you think your website is already doing this, you feel confident about it, and it's being done consistently well. Put a 2 if you don't think so. I know I have a couple clients in here, so if I see a 2 from there, we'll have to schedule a meeting. All right, got a couple ones. Okay. All right. So next is going to be the GEO formula. So you want to answer real questions very clearly. So you're kind of acting as if you're trying to solve a problem. You can do this with a lot of things. Basically, on the G or basically with FAQs. So writing, finding out questions that people are asking consistently, and writing those on the website, and then you can also do FAQs with your Google Business Profile, answering questions there. Blog posts, they're a great way to do it too. So any particular often asked questions, you can answer those on the website too. AI, just like me, loves clear formatting, likes everything very uniform. So, another common thing I hear, everybody wants to have a good looking website, and that's important, but you can't sacrifice, the SEO and the structure of the pages for the sake of, a certain design, basically. You can have a great design, but you got to make sure it's formatted in a way that Google likes too. This is very, very important. And make sure that that content is formatted well, easy to read. Using things like bullet points, clear header tags. That's gonna, be much better for you. Using first-party data. So, this one's a little bit more advanced, I would say, but showing that you have the experience in all these things that in this industry, and writing content on maybe industry websites, things like that will kind of show that off. That's also with the cited online. If you wrote a article, Nadra allows this on their website. If you're in the decking space, writing a blog post there that kind of shows off your expertise is a really good idea. All right, so a little bit more specifics on the SEO. We talked about the services, the main a page for each service. So creating all of the, not just a page for decking or for fencing, but all the different types. You want to have those in there. The HTML tags, images, make sure the content's unique and not copied. The Google Business Profile, make sure you claim that. Make sure you have an actual address shown. If you want the best possible results, it's much better to have an actual office, and then make sure that office is placed around your target customers. Adding GEX, which is just citations. That's basically a directory for your business information. Aggregators is pretty similar to that. Make sure you're getting reviews. At the end of the day, if you're not doing well with reviews and you have, maybe 10 or less, that should really be one of the priorities coming out of this, is make sure you're getting those. And then ongoing content. So adding new blog posts, syndicating that with things like press releases or on social media is a good idea. The signals leveraged. So getting more backlinks to the website. Again, this is kind of a trickier one, but it is important to get backlinks consistently. Embedding your map, putting new content on the website. Those are all going to help as well. Okay, so this is a list of some of the keywords to give you an idea. And actually, these volumes on the decking side are low. I need to replace this, but the basically these are some of the most popular keywords that people are searching. Those numbers represent the number of times they're searched on Google every month. Again, these are low. This is actually a little bit of an outdated table, but still significant enough to know like each one of these keywords is searched separately. So whether it's decks or deck builder near me, pool decks, deck repair, composite decking, wood decking, deck builders near me, these are all searched individually. So you want to make sure if it's being searched, you have a separate page for it on the website. Fencing has higher volume, considerably higher. So whether it's fencing or fence companies near me, all the different fence types are very, very high in search volume. So if you do vinyl, chain link, privacy, wood, picket, garden, dog, metal, have a separate page for each one of those, because they're being searched separately. That's going to help you significantly, throw a bigger net out, I guess. If somebody's searching for chain link fence specifically, and you have a separate page for it that has images about chain link fence, and competitors don't, that's going to be one way you can stand out. All right. We still have a couple more slides to go, but if you are curious about this, because we see this probably, way more often than not when we do audits and things, there's a lot of content that's missing. The pages are not optimized for SEO. So if you're ever curious about it, and you want us to kind of look at your website and check it out, I'm happy to do that. We'll basically sit down, and we'll do a complete audit of the site and give you some ideas and give you very custom strategies. So I would say the thing I enjoy doing the most is like taking an existing business and kind of pointing out exactly what I think would, move in the right direction aside from just creating a new website. We get real strategic and have a lot of different strategies that can be custom to your area, your business, that kind of thing. Check out competitors too, which is always going to play a huge piece. And you got to be really aware of that. But if you are curious, just contact us, deckfencemarketers.com/contact us. That's the phone number there too. All right. So told you I would come back to this EEAT because it's kind of confusing to most. A lot of people don't really know about it, but Google released this whole idea of EEAT to show like what they want to see from businesses to rank. So back in the day, it used to be like people would just get a domain that was like tampadeckbuilder.com or something like that. They would just have the name there. That would match the criteria, match the keyword they wanted to go to, and they wouldn't have to do a whole lot to start ranking. Now that's not the case. Now they want to see brands, they want to see actual companies. You can still use the keywords in the name, and honestly, it still will work. It's just that's not the end all be all. It's not like it just works by default. You still have to do all these things with SEO to get those rankings. So you could do both of them, and I do recommend trying to put some keywords in the name, but the brand overall long-term strategy is what Google is going to be looking for. So the experience. So Google doesn't want to. What they realized is they don't want to start showing content that was written by someone that shouldn't be writing it. So with experience, they want to show content that was written by an actual deck builder, fence contractor, that kind of thing, to see exactly, make sure that the content they're writing should be written by them, should or has the experience to do that. Expertise is kind of similar, but you could be a subject matter expert. If you kind of just understand things about what you're writing about, even though you might have firsthand experience, that can also work well. Think about people that are writing news stories that might not be an expert on whatever they're writing about, but they've done the research, they're a journalist or whatever. Might be a bad example, but I hope you kind of get the gist there. But that's what they're going to be looking at with the content, deciding if that person that wrote it is actually, should actually be writing it and if people should be reading it. All right. So authoritativeness, this is a lot of different things, but having an authority in your industry can help out a lot. If you have a strong reputation within an industry or, within an association, that kind of thing. If you write content for association websites is a big one. Basically, an authoritative site would be something that you're seen as the go-to source of information on that topic. So having backlinks from relevant websites is a big one. And also interviews too. Like if you have a YouTube, we had a client that did an interview with about a deck collapsing or something like that, I think it was. And they did like a news report on him as like the owner of the company and owner of a deck company. And they were able to, that once those signals are out there, that helps you too. Trustworthiness, this is definitely the number one to pay attention to. It can be demonstrated in kind of a lot of ways, but the more basic ones are if your website says not secure at the top, that's a big, big no-no. Make sure you have a secure website. If it does say not secure, just Google how do I add SSL to your website or enable SSL. Another one's going to be reviews. So on websites we build, we put the testimonial widgets on every site. That's how you kind of explain, that you've done good work in the past. People are talking about your business, so that you're doing a good job, that kind of thing. So make sure, again, for the 100th time, I know I say it a lot, to make sure you have a lot of reviews and put them on the website. So why is it important? It's going to help you through rankings big time. If you pay attention to this and keep building on it, it will increase your rankings, I promise. It shows that you can be trusted, your website's secured. If it says not secure, everyone's going to be very weirded out about it. Sometimes Google Chrome will give you a warning saying, are you sure you can trust them? So a lot of people that see that are not going to want to keep going. And then it also just shows you that the content that you actually have on the website is high quality. All right, so here's a couple things you can do individually for each. The experience side, share your personal experiences over in content or social media. Examples of work you've done, showing pictures. You could also do like projects and things like that, project pages. Cite different sources you might have been talking on. Use keywords, of course. The expertise side, make sure you do and conduct that keyword research and have a strategy around it, and make sure that content is built around your experience related to that content we know people are searching on. Be consistent, new blog posts every month, new content. Authoritativeness. So the link building, again, this one's a tough one. It's usually hard to do if you're not like kind of familiar with SEO, but you can build backlinks. Just make sure they're not spammy ones. Don't go to Upwork and pay $5 for like a thousand backlinks, because it can actually hurt your site instead of help. Make sure you're using social media. If you can post consistently, usually that's pretty tough for guys, but it is a good idea, and a good way to show off your work too. The bio page. This is a good one here. Have a picture or having a actual page of the owner of the business or the manager that talks about them and like their experience, things like that. That's good to have. And then we talked about trustworthiness, pretty good. Make sure the website's secure. Make sure you're getting reviews, privacy policy page, and just all your messaging is consistent. All right, I know we got quite a few on here. Would love and be happy to do a live audit on anybody's site that's on here, that wants me to check it out, and I'll give some feedback. If you do, if not, I can, well, hopefully somebody's brave enough to send theirs. If not, let's see. Wait a little bit to see if anybody will send one in. If they want me to look at it, I'll just do an audit. I'll give you a list of things to, there you go, Mark. Thank you. Deckology. That's a cool name. Okay. Minnesota. So it's Deckology, but that's the domain, huh? Okay, so they're combined here. And feel free to come off mute if you'd like. No worries if you can't. But all right, so okay. All right. So first things first. All right, so is everything, oh, it's all combined, I think. Okay. Yeah, so we see this pretty often. Definitely want to break these apart. So looks like all the services are on here, and you just click to scroll. Not only what I would recommend, like having a page for decks or deck builder, but we'll add pages for things like deck railing or deck lighting, composite decking, wood decking, pool decks. If there's a keyword for it, having a page for it's going to help you out. Same with porches, pergolas, and patios. I definitely recommend separating all three of those. Skylights and sun tunnels, you can separate those. And then it looks like you're doing some interior remodeling because you're in Minnesota. I know it gets cold there. I was just there a couple months ago. All right. Yeah, that's definitely a big one there. All right. So we got products. Nice. Fortress. Cool. Yep, that's good to have this. Having a separate page for the different types of framing. See the decking. So you separate it like this. Okay, this is cool. I like how you separated that. Uh, yeah, I think the biggest thing is definitely just more content. So, and honestly, I would say just simplifying this. I'd love to know kind of the difference between, I don't know how to pronounce that, Nash, construction and decology. Maybe you're kind of in a transition period. I'm not sure, but because Google does like brands specifically, if you kind of have them separated out like that, it's going to confuse them. Let me see if I can find this. Okay, so you have that one there. This one. This is you guys are not. Let's see. Yeah, it's a different one. There it is. Okay. So yeah, I don't, without knowing the backstory, but it's kind of hard to say. But with just in general, having one main business is gonna help you out. Looks like you don't have the addresses. Oh, you have one on here. Okay. Yeah, it's not a good idea to share an address. So if you did keep it this way, you'd want to have a different address for Decology. But I do like this name a lot, Decology. I think that's cool. All right. Let's see about us page. So about the about us page is really important too. So, having testimonials is good, but having pictures of the owner of the business is really important. So making sure that people just feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy about you if they can see, who's behind the actual company. So that's a good idea. I don't see city pages on here. We didn't talk a whole lot about that, but all the top cities that you do work in, you want to sit down and make a list of the way we do it is 20 to 30 pages. And you make a list of each one of those should be a separate page. So if you're in, a couple in Minnesota, like I always know Edina or Minnetonka or oh, I forget the rest of them, Manorville. So any areas that you're actually going after, create a separate page on the website that's like, Premier Deck Builder in um, Edina, Premier Deck Builder in Manorville, Minnesota. So have those as separate pages and put 700 words or how we like to do is about 700 words or more of content on there as well. All right. So you have the railing on here. Okay. Yeah, this is good. Just call it deck railing. You want to have deck railing on there. So you're showing off that. Okay, that looks good. Yeah, it's a little thin on content, but it's good you have these pages. You just need to add on to them. You see the railing. Oops, lighting, I mean. Yeah, good. Yep, I think the main thing with this is just adding on to some more. If you click this, okay, it goes there too. Yeah, I would just say definitely recommend like simplifying this a little bit. I don't know the relationship between these two companies, but it's definitely going to confuse Google over time. Also, the testimonials, um, you have great reviews here, so putting those on every page, you want to have them on all your pages. That'll be a good idea too. All right, I think that's about it here. You're doing a good job. Yeah, not using stock images, it doesn't look like, I don't think. So, good job with that. I just saw Josh's message. Yeah, let's see. I got to remember the domain. Josh, what is I know I could research it, but I'm trying to think of off the top of my head.
It's jadex.com.
Okay. Oh, did you change that? Or did we launch it with that? I thought it was
I think
oh
we launched it with a few different
oh okay. Yeah, it's J or Home Improvement. Okay. Yeah, we built this one shoot probably a year ago, I think, right around there. So yeah, you'll kind of see like what I mean by should be pretty similar strategies even a year ago. I don't think we do a whole lot different, but all the different pages that you have, they should be separate pages with deck installation or deck repair, Josh's deck maintenance. Um, so having a page for all of these and enough content on there that kind of explains what you do, brands you use, things like that. All of this stuff is how Google's going to understand your website. And then this is really critical to the FAQs, like I was talking about. We typically do about 5 of them on each site. And you can see here the different fencing pages. Can't remember if we put a picture of you, Josh, or not, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
that was on my end. Sorry. Yeah, you sent
it's all
the
good.
photos and I didn't get them to you in time.
It's all good. Yeah, it's always good to have just an image of the owner. And you can see here, like when I talk about conversions, a really big important thing to do as just like a bare minimum is make sure that phone number is nice and big. We like to animate them so it kind of draws your eye a little bit better. You can have other call to actions and stuff like, these floating buttons too, but you don't want anybody to question whether or not they can get a hold of you or how to get a hold of you basically. So give them all those options. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. This one's still pretty similar to how we do it now, Josh. So it's still standing strong. All right. Any other questions, Josh? I know I kind of went through that one quick.
The only question I would comes to mind is like I said in the message, we haven't invested in like SEO and stuff like that. I guess what do you think would change from like a year ago? What would progress from a year ago till now? Like what would be a major change if we did invest in SEO? Do you think something would look different on the website or it would just be the same in different literature?
It would be really similar. In terms of a lot of the stuff that we did, like the FAQs, we've been doing them for a while. That was a really big one. Well, blog posts and like consistent new content is a really big one. So I don't know if the foundation would change a whole lot, but for sure, like in this case, like if you launch a website, you don't do new content. If you're not building backlinks, it's just going to kind of stay where it is. It's not going to get better over time. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing is really just adding additional new content to the website and building backlinks. But yeah, there wouldn't be a whole lot really in terms of like adjusting the existing content here. If that makes sense. It would just kind of be adding more onto it each month. Is this a real address here? Can't remember.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah. If anybody's using a service area business, definitely look into that too. Um, yeah. So we created this site kind of the same way we do everything with how we do SEO. So yeah, it's pretty much how we would do it again. Does that make sense? I don't know if that was good enough answer. All right. All right. Well, I see we got another Josh here too. Boston. Okay. Boston hardware decks. Nice. All right. It's good. Let's see. So one thing I see here, and this is like always can be a challenge, but like on the homepage, you definitely want to have something more targeted to like what your main services are. So if you're going to put something like this, it's like it's not Google's not going to understand it the way you want. They're going to want to see something that talks like targets your main keyword, that kind of thing. So rather than having something like that, I'd recommend, adding something like, Premier, deck builder in Boston, something like that, Premier Boston deck builder. I know it seems uncreative and it is, but it's going to work out a lot better if you do it that way. See your structure here. Looks pretty good. All right. Um, okay. I like this. This is a good section here. Okay, that's good. What's different about you? You got testimonials. That's great. Yep, you got the process on there. Yep, the projects. Here it is. So it doesn't look like you're including prices. Okay. I'm kind of a little bit against using the prices on there. I feel like it kind of scares people away from contacting you. So that's good. I don't see it on here. But looks good. I like that. You got some videos on here. Uh, yeah, overall, I like the homepage. Looks good. Let me see what else you got here. Oops, kind of skips around a little bit. Yep, these are good also to put on here, the different manufacturer logos. All right, let me see the custom pages. Okay. Looks thin on content. I think you guys have a nice design. Um, but in terms of like targeted content related composite decks, it's definitely thin in that regard. Um, but you guys have the good design. I mean, you could add some more content in here for sure. Yeah. Okay, let me see here. Um, you definitely took it a couple steps further, not just having one deck page, but I'm guessing you don't do wood, so you're probably just doing composite, but you're talking about the railings. Um, you can do deck lighting. Pool decks is another one that's common. Pergolas and shade structures. This one could probably be broken up. Let's see here. Yeah, you're doing some of the louvered pergolas, looks like. Yeah. I mean, the design's good. It's just thin on contents. This is really good example of a nice design, but you got to have the content too that's going to play into Google and as well as ChatGPT's hands. So that also I don't see the FAQs on here either. So putting some FAQs there. Let's see what the blog looks like. Oh, the phone number up here, make that much bigger. That's too small there. Okay, let's see. So April, December. Yeah, it looks like you're pretty close. Could probably do a little bit more content to be honest. We usually do about 2 a month. Let's see how long these are though. Okay, pretty good length. Let's see this here. Oops. Nice. I like that you did that. Sweet. That looks good. Yep, great idea having the your picture on there. That looks good. Yeah, I mean overall it's a solid looking site. I do like the design. I think it just needs more in most of these pages. And adding some additional pages to kind of break it up would help you too. Let's see if you have any city pages. So this search here, if you're ever curious, if you do site colon and then your website, it'll show all the pages on Google. So this is just kind of how I can see how many pages you have. See if there's any hiding in here. All right. So I don't see any city pages. So around the Boston area, just oops, wrong website. Around the Boston area, just looking at what pages specifically or what cities specifically you'd want to go after and create pages for those. That's a really good idea. This is an easy one to fix, but you notice how you scroll and the phone number just disappears along with the header. It's called fixed or sticky header. So as you go down, it should stick to the top of it. So that way, as they scroll, you'll be able to see it, and the number will stay up there. All right. Put these on. I don't think these are on all the pages, so make sure this testimonial page is on all of them. The big difference there is if somebody comes to your website, like say they typed in pergolas. Let me double check before I say something. And you already did it. Never mind. You already did it. Sorry. I think you put on all those pages, you're good. Just making sure. Okay. Never mind. You did that. All right. This is our work page. Yep. So looks good. Having a gallery. Nice. Yeah, overall, I like it. I like that you got these in here too. So I think it just needs to be a little bit more. And actually, real quick, let me look at the Google listing too. Okay. So you got good reviews, got an address too. Um, make sure you want to make sure I don't know where Malden is to be honest, but make sure wherever your location is, make sure you're near your target customers. So if the area you want to go after most is around there, then you're good.
Why do you recommend removing the address?
Not removing. No, you want to have the address. You want to just make sure that you have the address is near where you want to work, basically. So if you're, I don't know the area too well, but if you're in Malden here and that's kind of around your target customers, then that's a good spot to be. But what we sometimes see is, a shop like a commercial shop or just your home office or something is where the office is set up and it's not near the areas you want to go after. So that can cause some problems if you're kind of on the outskirts. But I don't know, is Malden kind of where you think you would want to be? Like, are you, in that radius of where you
Not
go
particular.
to?
That's just where I live. I would love to
Okay.
be further north a little.
Okay.
Maybe building city pages for those areas might be a good idea.
Yeah. 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 If that's where you want to go, I mean, you can look into office spaces like co-working spaces and stuff too to find cheap space like in another area if you wanted to go more north, that kind of thing. So that's a real common practice too is finding, a cheap office space in another area around where your target customers are and setting up shop in that. That way you rank close to, the exact area you want to go after in the Google Maps, which is where almost 50% of the leads come or that's where they go basically. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. No, but overall, I do like the website. Nice design. It just needs a little bit more. It's a little bit of tweaking, but very, very far from the worst website I've ever seen. It's actually really good, I would say. The design, anyways, looks nice. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Are there ways to improve the Google My Business ranking?
are there ways to? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, yes.
Yep. So reviews are a huge one. You have a good name. I mean, it's got the keyword in there. Did you optimize it, like adding all the services and the products and stuff behind the scenes?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, if you did all that, did you add citations, like adding your business name, address, and phone number to like directory websites?
Yes. I had somebody else do that.
Okay. Okay.
I
Yeah, I
think I
mean
added it at least to like 35 websites or different platforms.
did they stop after that? Were those all like the citations that were added?
What do you mean stop? I mean,
Like any more after those 35?
I don't know. I mean, they said they're listed on 35. They would probably have done it on 70. They mentioned a 70 number ones, but I don't know.
Yeah.
How do I know where all it's listed?
You can try searching your name on Google and kind of going through the list, but a lot of times there's more that are just Google can find, but they're not really going to show up on Google. So there's thousands and thousands of citations that you can add. Um, and most of them are really for just ranking purposes, not to, actually generate a lead or anything like that. So
Yeah, they called it power listing and they mentioned like 70 plus sites, but I had them power list me for a few months. And then when I asked for sites that I'm listed on, they gave me a list of about 35.
gotcha. Yeah, so I mean, that's definitely a concern, like not doing enough of those. They probably did like the major ones, which is a good idea to start with. But as an example, we'll add 50 to 60 every month. So we'll add we add our clients' businesses like constantly every month. And there's ones for sure never heard of. Like those 30 to 35 you might have heard of. The rest of them, they're really just for ranking purposes. So they don't do, they're that's just kind of what they're there for, for building backlinks and awareness to Google. If that makes sense.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean overall, you're in good shape. I would just say make some tweaks to the site, add on to it, and then start generating. I mean, you just have to do new backlinks and blog posts each month. I think we said it was just like once a month here. So, being consistent with that is a really good idea.
What do you call backlinks?
So, if you're, as an example, say we're on this site here, Josh's site, and this was highlighted like in blue text that you could click. If you clicked it and it went to your site, that's a backlink for your site.
Okay.
So, yeah, Google it's kind of like a popularity contest almost. If they see a lot of other websites talking and linking to your site, then that makes them think like, oh, they're more important. They deserve to be shown more. So yeah, they're just not gonna lie, they're a pain to build. You kind of It's a very, very slow process if you're not really sure where to look immediately. But yeah, that one's probably the toughest. It's kind of hard to explain like how to consistently do it, I guess. But if you're using a company that knows how to do it, like that's what you want to look for. Um, but yeah, I mean, if
So
you
when building a city page, I give the page the names, the Arlington, and then just put projects that I've done in Arlington on that page.
you don't really have to though.
So if I build a separate page, would I have like a list of different cities, like a drop-down list, and then they all have their own web page?
Yeah, so this site here, oh, there you go. So this is an example of how we can do it. Like we have pages for, deck builder in all of these cities, and then you click on them and it'll go to a page that talks about, being a deck builder in Owensville here. And then the content is all about like the services you do basically. And you kind of include everything you do on there.
If you go to my site, I think on one of the links, go to the links to the top, our, about us or services. I have a page with a lot of different names on maps on there. Try our work and scroll to the bottom. No. Nah, I forgot where it's at. But I definitely have like a map of Google Maps with a couple of bunch of different names, city names.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, take those cities. I would also add the counties so it's clear, like, because sometimes you can have a list of cities and it's a little bit unclear if you don't have enough of them that you might, not work in the city. The person that went to your site, they might think you don't go there. So it's good to have county pages too, on the website for that. But building a page for each one of those is definitely what I would recommend doing. So hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. All right. Well, no, I appreciate everyone that put their websites in. Mark and Josh. But oh, Joe said, are you suggesting to not have general price range pages? It's kind of like a hot topic right now, Joe. Honestly, we have a couple clients that really want to do it, so we're going to be creating them. I think it's a good idea to show off the projects. I don't know if the pricing ranges I'm like sold on, because it doesn't even get you a chance to, reach out to them basically, or, have an estimate with them, like give an estimate if they're just kind of like sticker shocked and then they go to the next person, or they may assume you're too expensive. That's why I don't really like doing it. I think it's kind of unnecessary to be perfectly honest. Especially if you have good salespeople and you're like confident in that. That's kind of why we avoid it, but we are doing it for a couple, and I guess we'll be doing some more testing on it, but overall, I think it's best to avoid it. All right. All right. So anything here? We're getting at the end here now. I know we're a little bit past, but any takeaways, anything that kind of stuck out that you think would help, or maybe things you want to add to your website or your overall marketing? I mean, love to know if anything kind of stuck out to you or surprised you, that kind of thing.
I have one quick question. So in
Sure.
regarding to the pricing, is there a way you could have like a web page that's not necessarily visible directly, and you could text a link to the customer, go to this page and check out the pricing if you're
Yeah.
ready to share pricing, and then
Yeah.
you could hit it and see it.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, you could just keep that page off the website, like so you can't click to it, or you could make it a private page too if you wanted, or make it add a password to the page. But if you have nothing linking to it on the page on the website and you just have that link, you're fine too. You could just have the link and send it to everybody.
So it would be just not visible. It would still be a page on the same website.
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And on the pricing note on the page there too, it is a good idea to have some kind of financing option. I did a podcast on this, but the owner or the president or founder or whatever of HFS, he was saying companies that have financing make is either 16 or 18% more than ones that don't. So I'd highly recommend adding that and then including that on your website, because he said it was like 75% of people use financing in some way, whether it's um whether it's a like friend or family member or like an actual company. So that's another good piece to add on there too. All right. If you have any questions or I know we're kind of in the busy season here now, but if you have any questions about your marketing, things like that, feel free to reach out. You can go through our website, deckfencemarketers.com/contact-us, or feel free to go give us a call too. But if you want us to take a look, see what you have now, see if there's any way it can be improved, create something that's custom to your area, happy to talk with you and, just reach out. So Joe said financing for us was always more work with no results. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That when he started telling me that, it kind of made sense. I've heard people say they don't like financing or most people don't use it, but then it also made sense to me that like maybe they were financing, we just didn't know about it. Like they were just going through friends or family or something. So I don't know. It's I can't see it hurting, but it sounds like it might be in your in your case if it was just making more work. But we have seen clients get good results with it, so I think maybe it works for some, doesn't work for others, but could be worth testing. There's no fee, at least with HFS or Acorn if you use JobTread, so not a whole not a very big risk. So if you do want to follow us on social media, there's the QR codes. Feel free to reach out to us there. And yeah, if you have any questions, love to chat with you guys. And that's kind of it. I hope everyone got something out of it and it's informative. Sorry we ran a little bit long here, but yeah, hope everyone's having a good start to the year and keeps killing it. No problem, Amelia. All right. See you, everybody.